of wanting to survive, wanting to be right, fearing not being right. But what Scott was talking about with anxiety, that people want to find sort of a scapegoat for, well, I guess it's a little bit more nuanced than I was saying originally.
I think
Go ahead.
I think it has a direct. It's either you understand cause and effects and dependent origination, or you don't, because it's not so much as saying like, oh, like it's my fault and it's like my responsibility that I fucked up and now I'm feeling anxiety. So it's just you didn't understand that anxiety can only arise due to certain causes and conditions and operations of our own mind. So when these operations of the mind took place, it seems as if it's something that's happening to you that you have absolutely no intervention in and like no ability to change, which is a misconception. But yeah, so we were just talking earlier about I'm sure many people out there have had some experience with weed and marijuana. It's a very common drug. And then everyone can understand that maybe some kids are in high school, they all get together with their friends, they're smoking weed, and then one of like everyone's just like I'm high, and then one guy's like freaking out. It's like, oh, I'm high right now. Like, is there a cop? Like, is there something bad gonna happen? And then everyone else like, nah, dude, you're just tripping, dude. You're just high. And then like trying to calm down like that. So it's like, it's not the drug that's making someone anxious or unanxious. It's literally the state of mind. So having a no worries, laid back state of mind, everything's fine. No need to imagine problems or future problems. Then you tend to just be in a more relaxed, more dukkha-free state, because that's a direct result of cause and effect. So thinking worrisome thoughts and hypothetical dangerous situations is a direct cause of the anxiety that someone feels. And it may be amplified after you smoked a little bit of the ganja, or or just normally, just on the day-to-day basis. So it's a real directive cause and effect, and be like, okay, instead of all of a sudden being in an avalanche of anxiety and just saying, oh, I have generalized anxiety disorder or something because I'm experiencing, then it's a chemical imbalance or something. Then you don't really understand that these things came from a certain cause, right? Yeah, it came from somewhere. It came from number one, how we think about things and our mechanism of reacting to things and how we interpret situations.
So are you saying that like the normal, you could say like the ordinary view, like how most people view it, is that these mental illnesses is something that happened to us and we are basically at the effect of it, to a perspective compared to the perspective of, no, these are your creations. You just don't know that they're your creations, but you created these processes that you're calling disorders.
Yeah. All of it is 100% a creation of your own mind. And this is very empowering,
Yeah.
rather than getting mad at hearing that and be like, no, I didn't, like, this has nothing to do with me. I'm a victim of it. Then go, if that's your conviction and that's what you think is true, then then really what is there to do, right?
Yeah.
It is true
Yeah.
that it is not, oh, you didn't create it with your own mind and you're just a victim. It's like an illness, like a virus that took it over you. Oh, the best bet you have now for the rest of your life, maybe take some of these pills that will make the symptoms not as bad, but underneath you're still going to have a faulty brain. That's really depressing if you ask
That's
me.
a really good point. That victimhood is comfortable from the state of the victim who doesn't know anything else, who has this disorder or something they blame their problems on. Now, these disorders can be used skillfully too in a psychological setting, but there are also people who use them unskillfully as sort of scapegoats for their problem. That saying that they have responsibility is, one, because of our psychological conditioning, scary. Because we, in school, if we have responsibility and we do something wrong, we're blamed for it and we're criticized for it. We're people are critical of us for it, and so are our parents. If we were supposed to take out the trash and we didn't take out the trash, you're a bad boy. And when we hear that we have the responsibility for our anxiety, we're scared because we didn't take out the trash. But in fact, we have the opportunity to take out the trash, that our room has been building up with bags and bags of trash for so long, the room being the mind. And the fact that we have responsibility, that we can take these smelly bags of trash out, is empowering.
Right. So so it's a transition that may seem a little bit scary at first, but it's actually a lot more liberating than, oh, I'm kind of just, my brain is just, there's something wrong with the wiring of my brain. So now I'm stuck with this problem that I'm dealing with. Now, it may be a little bit overwhelming at first to hear that this problem is created internally due to a habitual tendency of how we think and how we interpret things. But just like when you let your room get so full of trash, the more and more trash that gets in the room, the less and less you want to clean it up. Well, the first step to start cleaning it up is to realize that no, the trash didn't come from your genetics. The trash didn't come from just some hocus pocus thing.
It's not
Some
furniture. It's trash.
Yeah, some hocus pocus someone wrote in a book that's not even, like, psychology isn't really a real science. It's not a hard science like physics is. Like, it's not based on direct provable stuff. It's just based off like wishy-washy observation and stuff like that. Anyways, so you don't want to clean up the room that's so full of trash, but the only way to clean it up is to realize first that you actually can clean up your room by what you do, and to start with one bag at a time. So the first step to cleaning up your room is just taking out that first empty can of soda. And now that barely made a difference, right? But now you're on your way. so like
there's like 5,000 cans of soda in that room, man.
Yeah.
But we won't pay attention to those ones. Just this can. Just this one.
Yeah. So you focus on just the one can, and like, I did it. I threw away a can of soda, and then yippee. Now, instead of like wallowing in the victimhood of being in a dirty room, you start to generate some success in cleaning up the room. But then back to an earlier point I was trying to make about stuff like anxiety and any other like general depression disorder. Hey, what's up, man?
So going, guys.
What's up, Carl?
Other
It's Nick.
disorders like that is it is actually very extremely liberating to realize that there's a way out of it, and the way out of it is right in between your two ears. So and one of the calls that I had with Dhammarato that really struck a chord with me, it made a huge difference in the way that I thought about things, is so I was going through a breakup at a time. I was getting dumped by this girl that I was really, attached to, like really clinging to that as a sense of comfort and a source of happiness. And when that was being taken away from me, I felt like I was doomed. Like, yeah, like I felt completely doomed. And he was like, yeah, so you feel terror and loss right now, right? I was like, yeah. So he's like, in that moment that you're thinking that thought, I am doomed, you feel doomed. And that's it. And then something clicked for me into my brain.
Yeah.
In this moment, the thought thinking I'm doomed, like, oh, I'm all alone, I feel doomed and I feel all alone. So no,
Yeah.
the girlfriend left you. It's because you're thinking that unwholesome thought about something that's not even here in the room. And so you feel bad because of it. So instead of being a victim of your circumstances, you realize that your hell, all the hells, all the anxiety, all the depression is 100% self-created, self-fabricated.
Oh, shit. Wow.
Yeah, and until you realize this, then you're not going to be able to change it. But I'm not saying that changing it isn't easy. I mean, you start with that one can. If the room's full of shit, you got to keep one at a time taking out the shit. But I'm saying until you realize that you internally 100% of your own independent volition can clean it up, and then be happy with literally nothing and be in a heaven state rather than a hell state. It doesn't matter what I don't even think about that girl anymore. Like, you can be like one of these guys, they broke up with their girlfriend, like, oh, I was in love, my first love, right? When I was 17, that was my first love. And they'll be like, what? And they'll still be ruminating about it or something. They'll be like listening to a Taylor Swift song or something, and they'll be like thinking themselves the dukkha over doesn't even exist, except for that they're fabricating it in their own mind.
Wow.
Right? Yeah.
Wow. That's some juicy Dhamma.
Yeah, no, it's so important, because you can be just completely happy, just a happy camper, and wow, what a more enjoyable life it is to live that way. There's a quote from the Buddha that says, like, one of the things he says is like, we are happy with nothing, and we live like the Brahmins in that one realm where they're just constantly experiencing piti. So we're just getting high off freaking nothing. We're just getting high off PT and the joy of just simply because we can, because we learned how happiness and suffering works. And if you master that mechanism, and you learn it well, which is, it takes practice, like any other skill takes practice, but it's a skill that you can develop, and then so you can start just being happy, because you don't think about things that, number one, aren't practical to think about, Like, let's say, like, oh, you love your ex-girlfriend or whatever. What practical use is that thought going to have right now for you in your life?
Mm-hmm.
It has no practical use. So, like, the idea isn't to, like, never have thoughts, but to have thoughts that are just applied and sustained wholesome. So, like, you want to keep repeating wholesome thoughts, wholesome thoughts, wholesome thoughts. And then wholesome thoughts tend to be like a much smaller category of thoughts to pick from, right? So there's almost an infinite number of wholesome thoughts that you can have, unwholesome thoughts that you can have, but there's not that many wholesome thoughts that are true and real about the moment. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was gonna say I just want to add on to what you said, and then I gotta go. But I wanted to say that thing you said about hell, that the only heaven and hell that there ever was is the heaven and hell between your ears.
Yeah.
Like I really got that, man. It like fucking came down on me like a lightning bolt, and it was like, oh yes, I see that. I can see that, because it's literally like we go throughout our days and we're like, oh, it's stressful, or oh, it's hell, or like, oh God, everything is so fucking terrible. Well, if I wasn't saying everything was so fucking terrible, I wouldn't be experiencing it. They're inseparable. They're inseparable.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it, man.
It's very smart phenomena for the brain. It's like fish food for the brain if you give it the good stuff.
Yeah, that's like realizing that's dependent origination, like right there. That's dependent origination. That's all it means.
Really?
Yeah, it's like you realize the direct dependent origin. So you feel like you're in hell because they're dependent upon the causes and conditions of thinking those unwholesome thoughts that are creating the feelings of hell. So it's like if you look around, you're not really being stabbed by any demons or in a fiery pit, but you feel like you're in hell. So, but like, so instead of taking the magic out of heaven and hell, you realize hell is dependently arisen from how I view, interpret, and think about it. So then the practice of sati, which just struck you, like when you realize, oh, wakey, wakey, of course that's the way it is. And it's like, it's so obvious that's sati. So like the skill is developing to when that hell is being created again internally. What? Wakey, wakey, look, what am I doing? Wait a sec here. Wait a sec. Something's going on. What, like, let me remember to look, what the hell am I doing to myself?
Well, and then the thing is we imagine hell is like over there somewhere. Like hell is like outside of our imagination, or it's outside of us somehow. But the truth is that anything that we can imagine that's outside of us is still within our imagination. So there's no, you can't rely on that. You can't rely on that as truth, because it's all inside your imagination. So of course, heaven and hell is just imagination.
Yeah, if you're thinking about hell, you're thinking about how you're scared of hell. In that moment, you are in hell because you're thinking hellish thoughts. And then it's the opposite is true with wholesome thoughts. When you're thinking how nice it is, and like you're thinking how nice, like, oh, this is heaven, you're in heaven. And so it's a direct result of our actions and our viewpoints and all the Eightfold Noble Path. Like so like the whole rebirth thing too is more profoundly reframed as, instead of lifetimes, as moments. So if you're thinking angry, unwholesome thoughts in this moment, the next moment you're going to be reborn in an angry, unwholesome hell state.
Hmm.
So that's your karma in action.
Hmm.
All right, this moment you are satisfied. You stay in the wholesome. You stay in the Dhamma. You remember the Dhamma. You remember to wakey and look. The next moment, you're born in a more pleasurable state, in a more comforting state, and and your past life would just be the moment right before. So
That's why I try not to kill bugs.
yeah, I mean,
Kill a bug with anger, and then the next day or like the next moment you're reborn in the hell realm.
I mean, yeah, that's like more
It
of the
depends on your mental state as you're killing the bug, right?
Yeah,
If you're
so
angry
Exactly.
and dissatisfied, there's not liking, there's not wanting, there's needing to get rid of the bug, there's the clinging to it, there's the becoming someone who needs to get rid of the bug, and suddenly you're born as an angry person who needs to kill the bug because you're scared or whatever it may be. But this practice is about seeing that process of dependent origination, paticca samuppada, and stopping it and choosing the wise road and choosing not to take a birth, because becoming something, being born as something, is heavy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fucking awesome. Thanks, Parker. I've never heard anything like that in that way before. I really haven't fully understood dependent origination. I haven't really looked up on it much either, but it seems pretty simple. That's what it is.
No, when it
seems
comes
pretty
down to
simple.
it is very simple. It's kind of just like taking the magic, like, so things are interrelated. Things happen because of X, Y, and Z. Like, as a result of X, Y, and Z, there's cause and effect, right? I think everyone understands that. It's just that the normal, ignorant mind throws a bunch of magic fairy dust in there and says, "Oh, it's hocus pocus because of this," and like dreams up all these immaculate about why things happen that are completely magical and untrue. And the Dhamma is just actually looking in this moment, what is causing what? And would be like, thinking I'm doomed makes me feel I'm doomed. So that's a direct cause and effect. So what should I do? Well, first of all, stop the cause. If
Stop the cause.
Bringing it into the cause, you bring it into the effect.
That's fucking awesome. That's so great.
Yeah, dude. It's so practical.
That's why Dhammarato is so keen on throwing out an unwholesome thought as it arises, because you're starting to see down to the nano level like what's actually going on, and how those thoughts are formed and why they're formed and what led up to it and everything. That it's like a little mini story in every single moment.
Not why, but how is the key. How is the key. We're not looking at the content of the thoughts, but the process.
The process, yeah.
There is liking of something, and this is where we can either choose to be wise or ignorant. When there is liking or disliking of something in our senses or something in our mind, the ignorant way of action would be then tanha, wanting, craving that thing. But with wisdom, we can see these feelings as just feelings. There is just liking. There is just disliking. And when we see it that way, we don't need to get up all into arms, stressed out, needing something, wanting to get something away. We can be fine with things as they are. If there's a mosquito bite, we can just let the mosquito bite be on our elbow without disliking it and wanting it to go away. So we're scratching it and we're clinging it and we're born someone who hates mosquito bites.
There it is again.
We can just be satisfied.
Yeah, for sure.
And so beyond the liking and disliking that arises when we see something, we taste something, we hear something, we feel something, etc., when a thought arises, beyond that, if we're waking up to that process. We can choose. Are we going to suffer or are we not going to suffer? Are we going to be wise or are we going to be ignorant? Ignorant to the fact that if we start wanting something, if we start clinging to something, if we start becoming someone, if we're born as someone, that's stressful. That's dissatisfying.
That's so awesome. One thing I want to just add is I've been practicing a lot of I think it's really actually like a whole nother expression of the same thing, which is just resting. Resting naturally without seeking or describing anything. And it's like in the absence of the seeking and describing, aka the thoughts, the dependent origination, everything just is. It's all okay as it is. And there's nothing to change because you have to describe change. You have to like see a whole point of view, picture, story of someone changing something. Like, so if you're not seeking or describing anything, there it is. That's it. And it's like not very long that I can be completely present to that in every moment, but it is good enough. It's expanding the capacity to just be in an experience without seeking or describing it is growing. And it's truly like fucking opening my heart. It's just opening life within me because I'm just seeing over and over and over the just like complete abundance of freedom available everywhere in every moment, because there's nothing there to hold on to. There's nothing to take as mine. There's nothing to push away, nothing to avoid. It's just playing out, and hello, like we're just there for the ride.
As long as we remember.
As long as we remember.
And that's the practice, right?
Yeah.
When you're resting naturally without describing or seeking or clinging to anything, the mind habitually describes, seeks things, and clings to things. So when we see that process taking place, we make friends with it. We see it, we remember it, and we relax, and no problems. And that happens wherever we are, we can relax.
Yeah. And another thing that I would say is I had some issue early on with the friendship thing. And I don't know if I don't know, just might not have resonated with me as much, or it just took like a little time to get it under my belt. I'm not really sure. But what I do know is that with resting, it seems almost like, honestly, it kind of seems like a shortcut sometimes. Like I don't have to do all of that. I can just rest.
The whole practice is a shortcut.
The whole practice is a shortcut. Yeah.
Yes, our whole society, our whole life is about going and getting something out there, like you were talking about, something far away that is not here yet, and we're going to go need to do a lot of things to go get it. But the practice is immediate. It's immediately effective if we can remember and take the right effort to let go of any of the unwholesome thoughts we're having and to think wholesomely.
Yeah.
So I like to think of that as like gazing versus hunting. The hunting mindset, you've got goal oriented, and then the gazing, like you said, you're just there.
That's good. That's good. That's good. I'm in sales, so that's like especially good. I like that. No one likes to be hunted.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, I gotta go. It's been awesome hanging with y'all. It's been a lot of fun.
Nice to see you, Alex.
Great to see you again, Alex. It's been a
Good
while.
to meet you, Alex.
Good to see you guys. Yeah, guys. I'll see you soon. All right.
Bye.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else have any questions, comments to add? Anything anyone wants to talk about?
Alex seemed like he changed a lot when he was describing the present moment. It's just bringing me into jhana states. It's really nice.
Yeah, like I think there's different. I try to avoid the word resting because resting is a lot of vague. But I think he was talking about like he was like talking about effective practice. The way it's when someone explains something to me and they might not use the words of the Dhamma, first thing I do is like I see what type of like state they're in while they're saying it, and then that really like tells me whether like what they're doing is like good practice or like needs needs clarification. And so like what I take that to mean is like there is that quote from the Buddha that is teaching Bahiya or whatever his name is to train in when there's the seen, there's only the seen. When there is the heard, only the heard. And the cognized, only cognized. And to train that way. So like someone might say, oh, that's resting. And then that's what they're doing, is to rest in the natural experience of things. And it is only what it is, without going into hindrance or creating a self out of it. But I mean, if you just most people who think of the word resting or say the word resting will not be doing that at all. So it's not really a precise word. So it's more on like what you're actually doing. Because if you're resting in hindrances or you're resting in sloth and torpor, you're not really getting anywhere. It's like there's nothing useful coming of that. But if you're training, it's more of a training than it is a resting, and hearing only the heard, seeing only the seen, thinking only the thought, and then there's no self in connection with that. Then you are neither here nor there, nor anywhere in between, and this is enough for the end of dissatisfaction. So that's the only teaching the Buddha gave, this real short teaching to a farmer, and that's all he said to him, and that was enough for him to realize the Dhamma, and that was it. But he told him very specifically, train doing this, train it, and then when it is that way, that will be it. So he didn't say, oh, it's that way, don't worry. It's that, like, he didn't say, oh, that's the nature of reality, so don't worry, just let go, I guess. No, he said train that in the hearing only the heard, train in the seen only the seen, train in the cognize only cognize. So it's actually a skill that you're developing, a skill you develop so well to the point where that's how you experience. And when how you experience, that's when you experience the fruition of the Dhamma, and then you're completely satisfied with the capital S.
And there are different levels which we can process things. We can process things in just the very bare bones level, like you're talking about, where the scene is just the scene, or we can see it, and there can be a little bit of matching it up with past images, and then we can go, that would be like recognizing it or perceiving it, and then there's also an associated liking or disliking, and then we can go even further and tell stories about that thing. And none of these are inherently bad. They're all just processes of the mind, and we can use them skillfully and unskillfully. When you're driving, for example, you're going to want to have some stories in your mind about how it's wise to drive. You should be telling yourself the story of the speed limit, of the right side of the road is the side of the road that it's wise to drive on. Because if the scene is just the scene, you might be driving in the wrong way traffic and get yourself killed. So it's, but seeing that these are just mental processes, that they are just stories, allows us to use them wisely rather than clinging to them as fact.
Mm-hmm.
Because if
Putting
we don't
them down when
understand
they're
that
heavy.
the scene is just the scene, and that the cognized is just the cognized, and the feelings are just the feelings, that we think they are me and they're important in some way. But if we can let them go and see that that's all they are, there's no problem.
Right. So the skill to develop is, I guess, if you're at the point where you do process it into something and do process it into itself, waking up to the fact that that's something that's going on, rather than it just being mixed into the experience of seeing something and you think it's a part of it. You see, oh no, wait a second. I saw it, then I processed it, then I thought about it, and then I cling to it. And then so like there's all these other steps that happen to it. And like realizing that those steps happened is developing like insight around them. And then you can let it go. But the point of the skill to develop, or like where to get to, is you can develop the skill eventually, and with good practice and insight, is to see something and just have it be that and nothing else. Like that's possible. Like people like the technology of the Dhamma is really advanced, and like what's possible needs to be known. So it is possible to experience reality as seen and only the seen. And so like you're literally, so every ayatana, or everything that you experience, because like there's nothing proliferated about, or there's nothing added on to it, or there's nothing misconstrued about it, it's just images, like just images appearing and disappearing, thoughts appearing and disappearing. And there's no self like in connection with these experiences just happening. That is,
I really like that point, that they are just experiences, and having that knowledge that these are just things arising and passing away, and they're not important. And we can understand that by developing skills and developing the mind to see things quicker, it can be more obvious to us how these are just experiences arising and passing away. And these sort of the word mental state is kind of confusing, but these mental states of seeing things quickly and being here and now, they're not an end. They're just a tool. They're a tool to see that things aren't important. We don't need to be selfish about things. These are just stories. These are just thoughts, and we can let them be that way. Similar to, I read a good article recently comparing doctors and people blind tasting wine. That you can see as a layperson, when you're, say, tasting some wine or seeing your friend with a sickness and trying to diagnose them, it's just a bunch of senses. It may be sweet. It's that you don't have any verbiage or language to use when you're drinking the wine, or when someone's injured, you have barely any experience or intuition related to what's going on with them. Your best guess is probably just to Google, and maybe if something very similar happened to you or one of your close friends, give them that information. But a doctor or an expert sommelier, or someone trained in tasting and smelling and identifying wine, they develop vocabulary, and more importantly, when they see wine, when they're tasting wine, when they're looking at a patient, they've trained their minds in processing these senses. They've trained their mind in tasting wine and knowing that a certain taste or a certain smell means the wine was from some certain food that was from Italy, and they can deliver that information very quickly. And this applies to our practice, that to an ordinary person, they really have no idea what's happening in their mind. A lot of what they're doing is driven by instinct, driven by feelings, things they cling to as me. And what the training is identifying these patterns, these thoughts that arise in the mind, and being able to diagnose them, and being able to see them and see the patterns and see the ones that are unwholesome and lead to dukkha, and see the ones that are wholesome and lead to satisfaction, that lead to a wholesome life of no problems, that lead to that we can realize that these are just stories, and we can see them as stories, and we can choose whether we want to tell them or not. I thought that was a poignant description, because that's what a lot of skills are. They're learning to take in sensory information and tell certain stories about them and get certain information from that sensory information. And what is Dhamma practice? What is meditation practice? But just another skill.
Yeah, definitely. So like it is just another skill. But just like any other skill, there's skills that you need to learn when you first start, and then there's skills that more aspects of the skills when you're in the middle, and then when you get a little bit more advanced, then there's skills that you need to learn there. So what I'm saying about seeing only the seen and hearing only the heard, and not and stopping the process of dependent origination there is a little bit further on the road, because chances are for most practitioners the hindrances are too quick and the hindrances have already developed.
Yes, so, that when one's first practicing, their room is full of trash and they just need to get one piece of trash and throw it out. But as you develop, you can pick up more than one piece of trash, and you can see the trash faster as it
and
comes in.
I think even that's a good analogy, but even that metaphor has a limitation to it, in the sense that it's not a room that's full of trash that's just always full of trash. It's that in each moment the trash arises as a product of dependent. So like you see something, liking or disliking comes up, and then like all this stuff happens, and then now you're in dukkha. So it's in that moment. The trash was dependently originated in that moment, but for the beginning mind, it's happened so fast that it's just like, oh, it's just a room full of trash. So yes, at that stage of things, when you the hindrances are too fast to recognize how that it started, then the practice, or then the skill to do, is to throw out the trash. So start throwing out those hindrances, start gladdening the mind. The trash is a rose. You don't really understand viscerally how it got there. You're just experiencing trash because you haven't developed the skill to see things very quickly yet. And you won't be able to if everything's covered with trash. So you have to throw out the trash perpetually. And then you throw out the trash enough times that now you're thinking one wholesome thought after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. Now there's no more trash. So now you can begin to experience states of comfort and such like that. So now that these skills that we're talking about seeing only the seen and hearing only the heard, and the natural insights that arises from seeing really what's going on here, and how things change and disappear, and how there's no real self that connects them. Like there's no connecting self in all these experiences. that is more applicable to that practitioner who has emptied the room full of trash. So it does kind of get repetitive to teach just gladdening the mind and throwing out unwholesome thoughts. But to the practitioner that is in hindrances, that is what to do. So just like there's a progression of skills that we have when we teach, and then in these Sangha calls, there may be other people who are out of the hindrances who can hear and understand and apply what we're saying. But then also I think it's useful as to not give the impression to a beginner meditator about the Dhammarato Dhamma or the Dhamma as a whole is just, all we're doing is some sort of overly positive thinking thing where we're just think happy thoughts and everything will be okay. It's not that. It's not just that. It's a tool, and it's a skill set to develop an even more nuanced, subtle and nuanced, more profound skill and insight into the Dhamma, all the way down to we're getting to the real bare reality, constituent parts, life and death, birth and rebirth, aspects of our experience. So it's a more profound level of things, of instead of just, the problem is I'm a little lazy, I'm a little I have anxiety, I'm depressed. It's not just coming out of anxiety and being having some joy. Like that's the first step, and that's really enjoyable in and of itself. So it's enjoyable to do that, and you should do that. But once you do that, what are you going to do with it, right? Just wait till it fizzles out and be anxiety again? No, there's a progression of skills. So when you're in an enjoyable state and when you're in a happy state, now you can start to appreciate more advanced aspects of the Dhamma, instead of and then you can develop more insight, more nuance into dependent origination. Dependent origination is a multifaceted jewel, so it has a simple understanding of it, which is true, and then it has like a experiential understanding of it, and it has the natural law of the universe understanding of it, which can be seen and experienced for yourself. So you're kind of like, it's kind of like Albert Einstein learned the relativity of gravity through studying the natural laws of the universe. So it is kind of like a form of genius to look at your experience, look at the mentality, look at the factors, the composition of your experience, break it down, understand how it works, and then learn the natural law and the laws of nature, or the Dhamma, and completely. So that's quite a worthy endeavor. That's why it's a noble thing. That's why we say it's noble, or it's worthy of praise. It is very noble to actually undertake this and master it to the full fruition of it. And then also it's possible. So the Buddha did it, and then he didn't think other people could do it at first, but then he realized, no, there is other people could then learn it, and then other people become arhats themselves, learn this thing completely, all the way to the present day where they're still teaching it. So yeah, it's not like a magical thing that you need to be an angel that reincarnated at from the heavens to learn the Dhamma. Anyone can do it, but it is a skill. It's good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. Like the joy and the rapture part of it is 100% part of the package. But then there's more. It's more profound than even just being in a joyful state, and even just coming out of the hindrances. Being in joyful state and coming out of the hindrances, it is like the first like trampoline. But then how high can you go on the trampoline? Like how good can you feel? And then how quick can you develop the mind to really see what's going on and see and develop knowledge and visions of things as they really are. And you can start to appreciate more and more how, I don't want to say how deep, because deep isn't a good word, but how what's a better word for deep, Parker?
That yes, there are profound experiences, and this is a great point that you're making. But at the core of it is always dukkha-nirodha.
Exactly.
Dissatisfaction and the end of dissatisfaction.
Yes, so someone who has become an arhat, or who has become fully established in the Dhamma, it's nothing magical. It's just that they fully comprehended the Four Noble.
They're just an expert at the one skill of
Yeah.
seeing dukkha and letting go of dukkha.
Yeah, exactly.
And these profound experiences that you're talking about, they can be profound, but also they can be ordinary as well. They're just another experience once they're gotten used to, and in this way we can understand that these experiences are just a tool, that the Buddha had practiced the jhanas before realizing the Four Noble Truths and dukkha-nirodha,
Right.
and he still suffered.
Right.
So we can understand that these things are not an end. They are just a practice to help us see things clearly, to help us see dissatisfaction and the end of dissatisfaction clearly.
Yeah, that sums up what I was trying to say well. Like I was trying to say, because we emphasize first jhana so much in the Sangha, some may think that it's just first jhana, but this first jhana is impermanent. Like you're going to come into the first jhana, you're going to come out of the first jhana. Yeah, the first jhana is the cessation of hindrances, so it is understanding.
Yeah, and sometimes good feelings arise when the mind is not stressed out, when we're not thinking stressful thoughts. But they're just good feelings. Maybe we'll get relaxed and we don't even need the good feelings anymore. Or we can continue with the good feelings and no problem. But they're just that. They're just good feelings.
Yeah. And
what we're looking for is not good feelings, but we're looking for the end of hindrances.
The full understanding of dukkha-nirodha. So we become scientists about how dukkha comes into being and how it goes out of being. And jhana is a tool to learn that. So that's like the experience of jhana, and the experience of getting yourself into a wholesome state of mind and staying in a wholesome state of mind helps you.
For viewers who haven't heard that word before, it can often be confused for something very high, very big, and some people do define it that way. But we can understand it as just, in the Buddha's time, jhana meant meditation, just relaxation. These were various. The first relaxation is just when the mind is relaxed, and there are various good feelings present when one is performing this relaxation. And as one gets more relaxed, the mind is more relaxed, and you can see things clearly.
Can say satisfied, not wanting anything. I'm satisfied right now. How many times a day can we honestly say that I'm satisfied? That's a good question, because a lot of times we're not satisfied, and that's all that the Dhamma is tackling, or that's what the Dhamma aims towards, is going from dissatisfaction to satisfaction, and then understanding completely how that process works. So like someone who has become enlightened, or from the outside, people say, oh, this guy's a Buddha. It's because he understands the Four Noble Truths so perfectly that he's not caught, he's not confused or fooled by suffering, or he doesn't go into dissatisfaction and roll around it
just like learning a language, just like learning to walk. Do you after walking your whole life forget to walk? No, unless you start sitting in a wheelchair or something like that. But when one's practicing letting go, when one's practicing being satisfied, why would you stop? Why would you start stressing out? That it's a skill that once one develops, they continue to practice. And just like walking, they become expert walkers. Or we're all speaking English here, and it's probably all of our first language. It would be none of us are probably going to ever forget how to speak English. And just the same way, when one practices correctly and skillfully, one does not forget to let go of hindrances when they see a hindrance, because it's just it's a skill.
You were mentioning before how the nuances were important on the higher jhana levels. Would you say that practicing the higher jhanas will, or Parker, you can answer this too, but I think Scott was talking about this, practicing those higher levels past jhana 1 will reduce how often you slip into dissatisfaction? Because in my practice, I've just been noticing this dissatisfaction, slipping into really kind of any jhana that I feel like it, or just any kind of wholesome state, and then going along with my day until, kind of like Scott was saying, it pops back up and then repeat.
Yeah, so I mean, but like, you really just have to develop a mastery of the first jhana is the thing. Because
that's what I've been doing.
If you don't have a mastery of the first jhana, then you're not going to be able to perceive and discern levels and subtleties of the mind and stuff like that. So if you find yourself getting into a wholesome state and popping out of it, I wouldn't worry about higher jhanas. I would just be like, how long can I apply and sustain wholesome thoughts, and how long can I keep myself in a wholesome state? And
yes, okay. And and if we can do that, why are jhanas important anyway? If we can stay in a wholesome state and we can be satisfied with our life, then they're really not much importance. Another way Dhammarato talks about the jhanas is as
my answer. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that they're not important. I mean, this is all for fun, but I wouldn't say that.
This is my question.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just saying that they're not. I'm not going to teach you, or Dhammarato is not going to teach you higher jhanas unless you can. If you're consistently in first jhana. If you're like in first jhana and you hang out there and you can stay there all day and you can stay there all tomorrow, and then you're just keeping the mind wholesome, then I'll be like, okay, now I can teach you some other stuff, and we can start to put some gaps in between those thoughts, and then see how we can slip into second jhana by just how good we're feeling, and instead of thinking about it, and then come back into first jhana, and then we might be able to talk about later jhanas when you kind of have a handle on that. But that's not even there's no point in thinking about that if you can't maintain a wholesome state of mind. You have to be able to, if you're suffering from a hindrance,
Dhammarato used the analogy of a violin, that we when developing the first jhana, it's like building a whole violin. We have to get the body, the head. We have to get all that together, and then we string the first string. And so and that's the bulk of the work, developing that solid frame and the violin. And then the other of the 4 jhanas are just adding another string and adding another string and adding a string. And this speaks to the fact that we're getting certain factors developed. We're developing certain factors, mental factors. And once we can develop these factors and their skills, just like we've practiced being anxious all our life, we can practice feeling good. And then we can decide to take some away or have more of some. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, dude, have you ever seen you've seen Naruto, right? You've watched Naruto.
No.
Nick?
No, sorry. I know what it is, obviously, but
Okay. So
I know there's some toads and foxes and stuff.
you've seen Dragon Ball Z, right?
Somewhat, not insequential. I know what it is also.
There's like
I've seen
these
the memes.
Okay, let me just explain real quick because it's a good analogy. So there's these parts where they're training the student, and when I'll do the Naruto analogy because probably people in the audience have seen it. So he's trying to do the Rasengan, which is energy ball in his hand. So the first thing he gives him is a balloon of water, and he has to pop the balloon of water in his hands. And it takes him weeks to just pop the balloon of the water in his hand. And he's like, keeps wanting to learn something else. He's like, I'm not going to teach you anything else till you can just pop it in your hand. And then next was a rubber ball that he had to pop, and even harder to pop. And then next, so there's a progression. And with Goku, he's like walking around on this like high intensity gravity. This guy's training him on a really high gravity planet, and then there's a monkey on that planet that can run around easily. And he's saying, until you can catch the monkey, I'm not going to teach you anything else. So like he goes around and around just trying to catch the monkey, and it's super hard because he can like barely walk. And then he finally develops enough strength and skill to catch the monkey. And then he's like, okay, he puts some weights on him and was like, catch the monkey again. And then he has to go around with the weights until he catches the monkey. And then he starts to teach him like some real fighting after that.
Does he have to hold the monkey the whole time? Or can he just have the ability to catch the monkey?
The monkey's just running around and he has to catch it. But the point I'm trying to make here is that all we're gonna teach you or anyone else is first jhana. Until you can do that and you've like literally mastered it and you're in first jhana and you're staying in first jhana, then okay, we can talk about like let's go into this jhana, because then you can experientially get a taste of what exactly we're talking about. But if I say anything about second, third, fourth jhana, it's just going to be a concept in your mind. Like there's nothing useful about that. So literally the only thing to do is learn how to throw out hindrances and collect the jhana factors, as Parker was saying, so that you can master first jhana and stay in first jhana. It's like a training arc. It's like, okay, once you've painted the window.
And we can just use the word training to feel relaxed. And all we're trying to do, all this enlightenment thing is training to lighten up, training to be relaxed.
It's not serious. This is a really fun stage. This is literally coming into a joyful, uplifted state.
I'm emphasizing that some people will get the perspective of steps or something higher to go get and get greedy for. That's right. All we really need to practice is letting go, is relaxing. And maybe once we're chilling and we're relaxed and we're just sitting down, we'll just relax even further. But what we're looking to do is see dukkha and relax. And if one can see dukkha and relax, what number jhana you're in is of no importance. The only skill we're trying to develop is seeing dukkha, seeing this craving, seeing this dissatisfaction, and when we see it, we relax.
Right. So this is the like Parker's saying, that's the number one skill to develop.
And it's the only skill to develop.
It's
the only skill.
It's the same way that you go to other jhanas. So it's like going from 0 jhana to first jhana is the biggest jump. Like that's the biggest, steepest part. Once you're in first jhana, it's like you're at Disneyland and you can start to try out some of the rides at Disneyland. But before you get into first jhana, you're not in Disneyland. You're in the hindrances. So yeah, pretty much the only skill, like the main skill to develop is first jhana. And even if you go all the way into the higher jhanas and you come out of it,
they're just tools for investigation. There's nothing we're missing out on. It's just we're so relaxed we can see how the mind works even more clearly.
Yeah.
But the seeing of how the mind works is only of benefit if we're applying it to making sure our mind works well, making sure our mind works in a wholesome way where we're satisfied rather than a mind that works in a way that is dissatisfied and wanting things it doesn't have.
Yeah, so you can see the insights that the Buddha taught because the mind is more clarified, more purified in these states. But like, let's say you go all the way into the higher jhanas and you come out of jhana completely, then you're back in the hindrances, and the only skill is getting into first jhana and then becoming satisfied again. So it's literally like that's the main skill. But then once you're in it, then here we can start talk about some cool stuff that you can do while you're here.
Yeah, and it depends. Are you living in a cave, or do you have nothing to do all day, and do you want to develop these, or are you working a full-time job? And like we said, when you're in a car, having thoughts about what's in front of you on the road is beneficial. Similar, most jobs, having thoughts about what's happening is beneficial. So if you're living a lifestyle that way, then developing jhanas of that's just not something that's important. But if you're living in a cave or just chilling all day, then you can just chill all day. But either way, whatever your logistical situation is, the goal is to see dukkha and let go of dukkha. See this dissatisfaction and let go of this dissatisfaction. Whatever we do with the rest of our time is just play.
That's very relatable.
That's the whole Dhamma that's the teaching is dukkha-nirodha. And then all this stuff is just like an elaboration of learning that same skill. But another thing I was trying to say about the jhana is it isn't like a progression, like you spend a certain amount of time second, then get to a certain amount of time first, then get to second, then get to third. You could tiptoe in and out of them. The thing is that if you're in first jhana and you're currently in first jhana, then we can talk about, this is kind of how you tiptoe into second jhana, but we want to get in it and then come back into first. And you can tiptoe into third and tiptoe into fourth, and you can kind of dance around the two. But in any of the jhanas, you're in a wholesome state because there's no hindrances there. There's just more, as the Anupada Sutta says, there's different qualities or aspects to the different levels of jhana. And then
and these are just one practice. These can be just ordinary states. That the language we both use is sometimes in numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 or levels. Like there's something better to be gained, or these are special experiences. But really, they're quite ordinary if one practices them enough. That really being relaxed can be ordinary in the sense of, been there, done that. All we need to think about is relaxing. All we need to think about is seeing hindrances and letting it go. And that's all that's talked about, repeated over and over again, because that's all we need to do and repeat over and over again. That our mind creates problems. It gets dissatisfied over things, and the job of the meditator, the practitioner, is to see this process, and seeing it when one's more relaxed and the mind is even more clear can be beneficial, but it isn't necessary. So seeing when the mind's relaxed and letting it go, it isn't something, it's not a level to go get. It's just a natural progression of when one is relaxed and just chilling, then they can just chill even more, and then they can just chill even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's all impermanent. It's all for the sake of, wow, now I can really, now that I'm not distracted by thinking about the past or the future, now I'm not distracted by craving and aversion. I'm not distracted by ill will, and I'm not distracted by delusion and all these things. Now I can see really what's going on here. What the fuck is this? What is life? What is my experience?
Scott, you made a really good point earlier when Alex was talking about relaxing, that at first it isn't just about relaxing. If we were relaxing, we'd just be relaxing into more dukkha and more dissatisfaction. What the practice is at first is it's more active. It's like a training. It's like an effort. We need to see this dissatisfaction, and because we've been practicing being dissatisfied our whole life, the dissatisfaction is pretty strong. So it takes some effort to see that, and we start by talking ourselves into thoughts that are satisfied. No problems, nowhere to go. The grass grows and spring comes by itself. These sorts of things where we can nurture ourselves into feeling safe and secure and with no problems. And as this becomes a habit, as we habitually, by taking effort at first to think wholesome thoughts, to walk, for example, as the baby starts to walk all wobbly, then we don't need to take as much effort to take the next step. That when we see dukkha, we can just relax. We might not even need to have the elaborate verbal thoughts, but we might do it anyway.
I mean, yeah, once you train this, once you develop this, at a certain point, everything you're going to be seeing is wholesome. Wow, everything I'm thinking is wholesome. Everything I'm feeling is wholesome. Everything's just wholesome now. Because I trained into it.
One thought at a time. Whenever I did it, just whatever, just this thought. Exactly.
That's pretty sweet. Like that's the fruit of it. And then second jhana is like a cool, like, I mean, the first time you go into second jhana, you're gonna be like, holy fuck. Because it's like you're feeling like an overflow of like joy and rapture in your body, and your mind is completely disappeared into that, like the thinking mind, at least. So it's like it's a powerful experience. Like I would say that and that's just the second jhana. And then there's just more subtlety and nuance.
Just like then when LeBron James in high school dunked his first basketball, it was a powerful experience. It was a awe-inspiring experience. And he was like, wow, I dunked my first basketball. But now that he's 35 years old or whatever, and he's dunked thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of basketballs in his career, he's got the form down, and it's ordinary. And I can dunk whenever I want.
So you start to think, I could do that whenever, I can dunk a basketball whenever because I feel like a winner. So now you can go dunk. I could stop thinking and just bliss out whenever I want. And that's, I mean, that's pretty great. Like when it first happens, you're going to be like, whoa. And you might get so excited that you pop out of it and be like, I don't want this to stop or something. And then you're back in hindrances. But the skill, that's why first jhana is so important, is that we want to be able to apply and sustain the wholesome mind. And then we can play around with the levels and the skills. But then either we pop back out into hindrances. And if we do, then never mind, start again. Try to get back into a wholesome state of mind, first jhana. And then, so I think the emphasis on first jhana is warranted, but it's the other stuff we talk about is just, it's explained in the suttas, and then also when you develop the skill of first jhana, it's good to know. I mean, these things might happen spontaneously to you. I do really think it's a universal process. Like like without like a preconceived notion of it happening. Like if you practice well enough, I think the process of the jhanas take place. Although I only have access to my own experience, but the language of like different teachers, and then hearing not only Dhammarato talk about jhana, but other Dhamma teachers talk about jhana, it sounds very very similar experiences to each other, and different ways that they explain it that was like, oh yeah, I can experience it. But everything we explain about it is going to be talking about how it felt to, like, I mean, everyone's had sex, and then like how are you going to say what that feels like? Because it's like, yeah, we can kind of get a sense of it and like all have a consensus about what that's like, but even less people have experienced jhana. So it's kind of like that. Come and see it for yourself. But there is a set of instructions that if you do apply and practice correctly, you will enter a wholesome state of mind and experience the zeal and the piti and the sukha. And then if you are in the hindrances, the only thing to do is one by one throw out the hindrances and gladden your mind. Take some deep breaths. The instructions are simple. Alrighty, so does anyone else have anything to add on to that? Or we could wrap it up here.
One short thing. What's zeal mean? It said piti, sukha, and zeal.
Zeal. It's like awake, vibrancy, awakeness. Like zeal. Like I would say, like if you're on, like, let's say you're running in the 100-meter dash and you're on the starting block and you're cocked and ready to go, in your mind and in your body, you're going to be experiencing a lot of zeal. Like, here it goes, here we go. It's like it's very enlivening. So you're not gonna be like, oh, I think I'm kind of doing jhana right.
No.
Like, I guess I'm in jhana right now. Like no, like the jhana is like, wow, okay, here we go. Like I'm doing it. This is happening. Like jhana is an experientially. It's a noticeable experience when you're collected all the factors and you're free of hindrances. It's noticeable, and it's I had a conversation with Dhammarato. It's sometimes when I was first getting into first jhana, and it was like kind of a big deal. I couldn't really fall asleep. Like I was awake. like when you're a kid and it's Christmas tomorrow or something, or you're going to Disneyland next day, and you're all happy, all excited, like you can't really sleep because like you're just awake. Like that's kind of like a quality of like jhana. Like it is like joyous. It's like uplifted. And then that's why it is a fun state to be in. But then you can develop the skills to get a little bit more tranquil, a little bit more serene, a little bit more okay. And then go into third and fourth, where you're just feeling really good, really relaxed, really blissed out, but still really awake, like clearly awake. And then but you're not jumping off the walls with yippee, like you know what I mean? So yeah, but the first step for someone who's like grogged down in like the depression and the dukkha of samsara is you want to get them up into that yippee state. You gotta blast off, and how high good can you feel? And then after you get them up in that super uplifted state, then we can talk about like, okay, like what do you do with this, and like what do you do now? But yeah.
For the viewers here, there's a good video with Scott. Maybe that's where we can direct people to next. Talking about the four jhanas with Dhammarato, because I imagine some people watching this might not have any idea what we're talking about. That might be a beneficial video to watch.
It is a good video. That's how I learned experientially all of this stuff. I mean, I've read some other stuff about jhana and stuff, but it was the way Dhammarato taught me is the first thing he taught me was he gave me instructions. Like he was like just started talking about wholesome thoughts and how to gladden the mind, and he said, okay, just do this 5 times a day. I was like, oh. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like I just gave it a shot. I called him. I'm like, okay, I'll do what he said. And I didn't even do it 5 times a day. I just did it randomly when I remembered. And then I started getting in a really joyful state. And I'm like, this actually works. Like I can literally think myself into a wholesome state. Like it's that simple. Like I'm not a victim of my thoughts. I can literally change them and start getting happy. And then when I realized that, then it really rocket shit up. I'm like, this is amazing. Like I feel amazing. Like I really can think myself into a wholesome state. And then and then like I get myself into all hyped up and like really happy. And then like the first unwholesome thought pops in, or like I get worried, or like something pops in my mind and it like crashes out of it. So then I call him again, and like we talk about the crash landing. And then later on, I learned how to like consistently do it and stabilize it. And then a couple calls later, he starts teaching me a little bit more about second, third, and fourth. So he doesn't teach you where, like a lot of times I'll talk about all this stuff, but just, I guess, just because I like talking about it. But Dhammarato teaches you where you're at. Like, so he's like, he's not going to talk about ladder jhanas unless you're in first jhana while you're talking to him, and you can stay in it. So that's kind of how it's like a kung fu master. Like they'll teach you to first you have to paint the fences, you know, or wax on, wax off. You got to clean his card. So yeah, I don't know what that video is called, but it is a good video. Alrighty, well, I think that's it for me. Any parting?
Great.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you all.
Yeah, I think it's good.
For the people watching, check out that video. Ian will probably link it in the description. And there's also these calls are everyone's welcome to join. They're linked in the description. And so is the Discord. A lot of friends hanging out in there talking about this Dhamma stuff.
Yeah, I think more people probably go on the Discord chats than the Skype calls. But either way, it's good. Well, good to see you, Nick. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And good to see you, Parker, as always.
Yeah, great to see you both.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.
See you, boys.